Welcome, Trinity family, to another session of Table Talk, where we are able to interview other administrators, teachers, and staff, sometimes students and parents even. And we do this through an interview style where we hear the stories behind the scenes that make Trinity such a special place. And so this morning we are going to talk to our instructional coaches here at Trinity Christian School and talk about their role and how they are able to make Trinity just such a great place. So we want to start off with Mrs. Leslie Cook. And Leslie, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you happened to take on this role at Trinity?
Absolutely. So I am Leslie Cook, and I married my best friend, Joey. We will celebrate 20 years in April. We have two children. Riley is here. She's a junior. And Henry, our son, is a freshman, both here at Trinity. We live in Fayetteville with our two adorable puppies and attend Passion City Church. And how we came to Trinity, so 5 years ago, roughly, I was graduating from Liberty University with a specialist degree in leadership, and the Lord was beginning to stir in me this passion for supporting and serving other educators. And so I was praying through what that was going to look like for me and as a family, what that meant for us. And we knew Trinity. We had some friends that were here, but didn't really know specifics about Trinity. And so had some friends invite us to an open house. And we came and we were just blown away at the heart of Trinity and started praying about what that would look like for our family to transition. Prior to Trinity, I had taught at both public and private schools, and Christian education was really what we valued as a family for our children and then for myself in this job. And so you and I were able to start a conversation about the position of instructional coach and what that looked like. And it partnered so nicely with what the Lord had been stirring in me and where I saw Him guiding me. And He just kept opening doors, and one conversation led to another, and now almost 6 years later, here we are.
A lot of our families may not even know what that looks like as an instructional coach or academic dean. Can you tell us what that role looks like for you as you work with our lower elementary students and teachers?
So if I had to sum up academic dean and instructional coach in one word, it would be support. I truly support both students and teachers and also parents in that too. Specifically, as academic dean now, I've kind of transitioned. That job has evolved and changed. And I'm working alongside of our teachers to oversee the curriculum and the instruction and the assessments, partnering with teachers as they interpret data and make academic goals for their students, identifying those strengths within our students, and strengthening instructional practices, providing professional development and training opportunities to make their life easier as an educator. And then partnering with parents to answer questions about the academic process, with whether that be grading or curriculum, and just ensuring that our students are receiving a rigorous and supportive and engaging instructional and learning environment.
You know, we sent out a survey at the end of the school year last year, and one of the things that parents were asking about was academic rigor. And so how do you in your role ensure that we are really meeting the expectations of our families and growing our students so that they're prepared for their next step in their education journey?
So as far as the academic rigor goes, we truly spent time aligning our curriculum with the state standards. We don't want to just meet those standards, we want to exceed those standards. And so that's the starting place, I would say. And then from there, we're looking at the instruction, what activities the students are participating in class, incorporating that collaborative approach to the environment where students have a voice and they're part of the process to truly develop an understanding of what they're learning, and then be able to successfully show that through the assessment process to make sure our assessments, truly provide students with an opportunity to show mastery.
So when you talk about like a collaborative environment, those are some of the unseen things happening behind the scenes. Can you let our parents know what is collaborative learning and how do we incorporate that into our pedagogy here at Trinity?
Sure. So that's been one of the things I know when I first came and we were talking about that 21st century learning approach and what that looked like in the classroom. We started that just among the teachers at first. So I meet weekly with each grade level, and we are praying over our students, praying about the instruction that we're going to teach, and brainstorming ways that our students can interact with one another. In lower school, that looks like small group instruction. We spend a great deal of time at the beginning of the year identifying our students' strengths and areas for growth, whether that's through our benchmark assessments or just the time that the teachers spend getting to know them and their unique learning style. And then we then can brainstorm ways that our teachers can meet all those unique needs of our students. And small group instruction at our level really works well because the teachers can differentiate the activities and the learning so that students feel successful and they can build confidence and they learn from each other. So much of what's happening in the classroom is not the teacher always talking and directing, but providing activities that allow the students to engage and have a voice. And I think when they see that they're seen and valued in the classroom, that it just leads to greater academic success for them.
Great. Well, we're so glad to have you here, Leslie. Kristan, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Kristan Peavy is our kind of instructional coach / academic dean for middle school students and for the staff. And so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, I'd be happy to. So I'm Kristan Peavy, and I actually began my journey here 5 years ago. So this is my 6th year at Trinity, and it's kind of ironic the way I ended up here. So the Christmas before COVID hit, we were in the area for a Christmas gathering and just praying about God's best for us. We had just returned from serving in Vietnam with a nonprofit organization and just asking God's best for us and praying through that as a family. And our kids knew this. And when we visited, we actually heard about Trinity, and we drove the campus that December, just a really cold, quiet afternoon. And my husband and I said, hey, let's start praying about this being home for us and just ask God if it was his will that he would open doors. And the following May, in the middle of COVID, I was in the middle of homeschooling and finishing the year out with both of my kids. And Rich and I just said, let's begin the conversation with Trinity. And I applied, and they offered an interview via Zoom. And so I Zoomed with the 4th grade team and then later Adam Vinson, and sight unseen, took the opportunity to come and teach as a 4th grade teacher. And 5 years later, that position has just morphed into working with our middle school ELA team, and then working with ELA department to grow and vertically align that department, and then taking opportunities to do that with Bible and social studies. And so as those capacities grew, my role grew, and I desired to match my experiences with the credential of going back, and I received my master's in ed and curriculum and instruction from Georgia College and State University this past year. And so it's exciting to put the academic credentials and the research-based models with it and be able to apply those here. And so my son graduated from Trinity last year and is now at Samford University, and my daughter is a freshman at the high school. And so we're excited to be in our 6th year here and just excited to serve. Yeah.
Good. So it's somewhat uncommon outside of education where you use what you learn in college and apply it directly to your life. It's one of the beautiful things about studying education because you really do use those tools. So when you look at curriculum and instruction, what is the vision and plan for helping our teachers and students grow during the school year?
Right. So last spring, I began writing a 3-part plan for our teachers, and then I want to see that emphasized in the lives of our students. And so just starting with that root of what are we teaching and why are we teaching it? So that's the standards-based instruction. And so I just took time to make sure that our teachers are retrained and re-equipped with those standards, and how do we actually implement those in the classroom and hold them accountable. And so we have implemented in the past 4 years a mapping tool for our teachers to be able to not just plan lesson plans, but to look at the visionary aspect of academic planning. And so we have curriculum maps that are now trackable for us to use as administrators, for our teachers to use and be able to track the assessments and how they correlate to the standards, but then also for our teachers to be able to create a transparency back to our parents. And so we use those maps to be a tool for that. But with standards-based instruction, that's not the root of why we are here at Trinity. And so that biblical immersion was very critical. And I saw that our teachers, as much as they were equipped with the gospel and had a personal devotion to Christ and wanted that to be apparent, to train our teachers and equip them better in how do we biblically immerse our lessons and our units to have a core and a focus of who Christ is and what are they learning through those lessons. And so in partnership with our Director of Spiritual Development, we have created and designed a research-based model, and we are creating a framework of how do we teach teachers biblical integration. And we're beginning that, and so we've laid it out to the teachers who came on that professional development day, and then we're beginning follow-ups to work with them on their personal units to make sure that biblical integration is just going beyond exploring the truths, but learning to apply them, and then begin to apply them at such a level it's evident in their life, and then the students become teachers in their own classrooms. And then, so standards-based, then biblical immersion, and then the third part of our academic focus this year is just a student focus in the classroom. And so in the background, that means us looking at those standards-based benchmark assessments and making sure that students are developmentally and academically in the right classroom.
So real quick, we use terms like standard-based education.
Yes.
So if I'm not in the academic world, I may not fully understand what that
Right.
means. So what do you mean when you say standard-based education?
Right. So Trinity Christian School has adopted the Georgia standards as our base model of the requirements for each course that we take has a set of standards, and those are just statements that say the student will be able to, and then it has a clear level of learning. And so those domains of learning have to be achieved in the classroom, and as the students work through those progressions, it layers from one grade level to the next. And so our desire is that at the lower school they're meeting those standards, and then we build on them in 4th and 5th grade. It also allows that vertical alignment of, if we know that they are coming to us in the upper elementary and then into the middle school grades with those standards already met, we know where they're starting at. And whenever we see, hey, we have a grade level coming through and they're weak in this area, there's a sensitivity to that in our classroom. And that's where the classroom becomes student focused. To us as teachers know where the weakness lies, or where a strength lies. Like I firmly believe that our writing program is advancing, and every year we're moving the bar on that to a level of academic excellence. And the teachers are having to be retrained and equipped each year to know where to push the writing bar at the next level. And so we individualize that instruction. We also look at whole group perspectives of it, like whenever we watch a class walkthrough and that they're increasing in those areas. And so standards simply allow us to create a vertical alignment and to equip us to use different resources, whether it's a packaged curriculum that we purchase or individualized instructional tools that we use as supplements. We make sure that all of those are directly aligned to the standards that we're using. And we have accepted the Georgia standards for all of our classes, but we have also written our own standards for history courses in 6th and 7th, because we believe that those are pivotal years that we need to be equipping students with how did the church come into formation. So instead of following the Georgia standards as they study different continents and the history that's happening on each continent, we take a pause and we actually begin with creation and how did God take creation and move that into the formation of the church in 6th grade. And then we pick up with that in 7th grade, and we go all the way to the modern church in America. And so that's really important for our students to understand how the church was created, how did it form, with the biblical model of everything began at creation, and then see the church flow, and then how the American church responded to historical moments, and that happens in 7th grade, and then we morph that right into 8th grade Georgia history. And so there's a flow there, and that's more of that vertical alignment and standards perspective, and that's the only area that we have written our own standards in.
I think that it's a beautiful thing it really helps our students to realize that the Bible is relevant.
Absolutely.
And you see that in every phase of history.
Yes.
And hopefully we can apply it to our real life and present day, right?
Yes, and it's very important also, I would say, to highlight that in that middle school level, we also see them beginning to defend and work with that personal faith coming out, especially like in our ELA classes, the students jump into Socratic seminars where they're looking at the text or the novel, and then they're having to say, okay, let's look at what Scripture says about this. How did the character respond? And we call it matched up or mixed up. And so is it matched up with these biblical truths? Or did the character in the novel deviate from that? And what can we learn from that? Because not every novel is going to have a character that exactly follows what Christ wants, and how do we work through that? And children learn from that opportunity to say what's matched up and what's mixed up, and then how do I apply my personal faith? So it's important.
No, that's great. I'm going to talk a little bit later about just the importance of vertical alignment and how the three of you work together. But before we get there, Karen Brannon works in our high school, the former valedictorian of Fayette County High School. And tell us a little bit about yourself. I know your family's been a part of Trinity. Give us an idea of who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Karen Brannon, and I started my career in public education. Worked there for a number of years teaching math, and then I felt the Lord calling me to Christian education. We had some connections through our church to Trinity. In fact, one of the former high school principals was in our small group, and I always kind of joked and said, send me a place at Trinity. I know I'm going to be there one day. And then it worked out. So in 2014, I came and taught math, and did that for a number of years. Some part-time, some full-time, had children and all. And then last year, stepped into the role of director of academics for the high school. I've been married for 16 years, just over 16 years, my husband Patrick, and we have 2 kids here. So Tucker is in 3rd grade and Cooper is in kindergarten. So we love TCS from the parent perspective as well. It's been such a blessing for our children. So yeah, it's been great. Kind of like what Leslie was saying, I have always had a desire to support teachers. I love reading best practices for education and for teaching and learning, and I love sharing what I find with teachers, and just meeting each teacher where they're at. Some of them come with a wealth of experience for different types of schools. Some of them just stepping into their first year of teaching. So it's been a blessing that the Lord has allowed me to be in this position where I get to do that each and every day.
Awesome. So from a high school perspective and at this level, how are we equipping our teachers and supporting them so that they continue to grow in their profession, as well as learning the Trinity way and how we integrate Scripture and the Bible into our learning environment?
Yeah, so we've been very intentional this year with our teachers. So for our teachers that are brand new to Trinity, even if they're not first-year teachers and have maybe worked somewhere else, we have a mentorship program where they're matched up with a returning Trinity teacher. They meet together. It could be, during planning periods, eating lunch together and just connecting there. And then the other director of academics at the high school, Reed Shackelford, and I connect with the mentor teachers themselves to check on all of the new teachers and see how they're going. So they do talk about, how is it going in the classroom management, instruction, but also just how they're acclimating to Trinity. Just questions they may have. It's kind of just like a non-threatening way. They're not having to go to their boss or admin or anything. They can just connect with another teacher, and it's really helped our new teachers to feel connected and supported from the very start. So that's gone really well. We also have departments, so we have department heads for all of our subjects, and Mr. Shackelford and I meet with the department heads once a month, and then they meet with their departments to talk about department-specific things. So it's sharing instructional strategies, it's looking at data, encouraging one another, sharing wins in the classroom, challenges in the classroom. Some of them are able to visit each other's classrooms and do like peer observations to give each other feedback and also gain ideas for themselves. So that's been great as well. And then we have another kind of subset of teachers, our AP teachers, and that's been another focus. So we have meetings with just our AP teachers to talk about things related to that and how we can best support them.
Yeah. When you have a Christian school, there are different points that you really emphasize. And, from a parent's perspective, and I've had 3 kids that have gone through Trinity. I want there to be some good academic rigor, but I also want the biblical integration. And so there are times as a school where we've decided to use secular curriculum because we felt like it offered the best academic rigor, and then we're able to come in and supplement it with biblical integration. So can you give us an idea of how that works in the high school?
Yeah. And this is another place where the departments are very helpful because it does look different in maybe a science class than a math class or an English class. But we're blessed with the opportunity to be able to pour into students not only academically but spiritually as well. And we take that, very, very seriously, and are grateful that parents are entrusting their children to us. So our science department actually has written their own biblical standards that they integrate, and they're ones that can go across, from physics, chemistry, physical science, that apply to all of them. Such as all creation points to a creator that we know is God. It didn't happen, by accident, and so they're able to, to weave things into there, and just all the classroom observations I get to do, I've just been blown away with the creativity of how teachers are taking what they're teaching and helping students see it through a biblical worldview. Even like Kristan was saying, if what they're reading doesn't match up with what we know to be true biblically, to help them view that through a biblical lens. Okay, how do we respond to this? Kind of where do we go from here? Even in math class, the teacher may present a way to solve a problem, and another student would have a different way to solve it. And I definitely experienced this in the math classroom. And to me, that's something like to be celebrated. Like, hey, God made our brains different. Like, you're wired to think that way. And they would think of ways that I hadn't thought of to solve it before. And I was like, how cool! Like, their creativity and their God-given, just gifts and talents could come out in that way.
Could you give us just an example of some creative and innovative practices that are being utilized right now in the high school?
Yeah, so I do have like I was saying, the opportunity to observe all of our teachers. So I feel like I walk away from every classroom with a new idea, like, oh, I never thought to do that when I was teaching. The use of technology is great, but what's even greater is teachers teaching students how to use it appropriately. Even different websites that utilize AI features, showing them, hey, this can enhance your learning. It's not going to replace, it's not taking a shortcut, but teaching them how to use that appropriately. Another thing that I'll see is giving students a voice, giving them some choices in what they're doing. Their final product might be a drawing, it might be a poem, again, depending on like their gifts and what they enjoy doing. So that's really encouraging to see, and it's a great way to get to know students as well when you see like they're choosing what their final product is going to look like, and it kind of putting their own spin on it.
Yeah,
so that's great.
That's awesome. I guess 5 or 6 years ago, one of the things that I had noticed was we had great learning environments in these different sections of our school. So you had lower school, they were really thriving in certain areas, middle school in other areas, then high school. But what happened was when there was a transition being made, sometimes there was a disconnect because you had different emphases and we weren't talking to one another. I think this idea of vertical alignment has become really crucial. And I think I'm going to start with you, Kristan, because you're kind of in the middle. You're working with the high school and the lower school. How important has that been to establish vertical alignment? And how do you do it? How do you communicate? How do you assure that we're all going in the same direction?
Absolutely. So I would say, first of all, it's a constant moving target. And so mainly because it's consistently working with a lot of different people and communicating openly and being able to be transparent whenever there's weaknesses or strengths. And that creates, you just have to identify as the body of Christ first to be able to walk through vertical alignment of a school in a biblical way. And so we first started with the ELA department because we feel like that is the root of all learning in a school is, can we read and can we write, and how do we vertically align that? And so we started with 4th through 8th because they're kind of in the middle, and then branching out from there, and we get down into the nitty gritty of the complexities of a sentence and how do we expect it to look in a 4th grade all the way up to an 8th grade, all the way up to 12th grade, and then what do we expect the writing as far as how much they write, how long they write, what different types of writing are they expected to write. And so it was important for ELA to go first in that. We also, 2 years ago, we did the ACSI Bible assessment, and that was not to assess our students, but to rather assess our curriculum, to say where are we with our Bible curriculum and how can we fill some gaps. And what we discovered is that we needed more Bible skills being taught in our Bible classes. And so we began using that assessment as a tool to shape our vertical alignment and find gaps and begin to fill that. And so I believe that is the core of using the database instruction to figure out where there are gaps and be able to vulnerably talk, as the three of us have many opportunities to do that. And sometimes that is in a formal environment, even as much as bringing in the principals to say, hey, we need to work on this area. And sometimes it's just the casual, me calling Leslie and saying, hey, we're seeing this in 4th and 5th grade. What does it look like in 3rd? And then classroom observations, like even 2 weeks ago, I believe, we had a 3rd grade teacher go in and observe a 4th grade classroom just to see what strategies are being used to begin now preparing her 3rd grade classroom for that transition into that 4th grade reading class. And so I believe that vertical alignment is critical for a school, that one is using curriculum, like you said, from a secular perspective, but making sure that even the vertical alignment of how are we approaching a biblical mindset in our ELA classrooms, and making sure that the high school knows what we've done in middle school so that they can build on that and go even deeper. And our Bible teachers are experiencing it. I had the opportunity last year to sit down and dialogue with Mr. Yakeley about what do AP exams look like, and whenever they respond on an AP exam, what is being required of them on those history tests. And we began then vertically aligning that back to our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade classes to begin preparing them in 6th grade for long responses. Now, it doesn't look anything like the AP exam, and it shouldn't. But what it does do is allow our 6th graders to wrestle with more than just the facts of history and to look at the implications of it. Yeah. And so that was important. We can't shoot them out into AP classes. We've got to prepare them, and it takes more than just those high school years. And so we began that process last year, speaking to Mr. Yakeley and then vertically aligning that. So sometimes it's in the little itty bitty details, and sometimes it's in the bigger picture.
Good. Leslie, when you look at vertical alignment, how much do you look at test scores? How much is it just through conversation with Kristan and other middle school teachers to make sure that we're preparing them for middle school? Or is it a little bit of both?
I would say it's definitely both. I've enjoyed getting to know both of these ladies and working alongside of them to make sure that our students are prepared. So much of what lower school, we're doing all the foundational teaching, even when it comes to the Bible, even what does it look like to develop a personal relationship with Jesus? So as you hear them say that they're teaching how to defend their faith, we're teaching what does that look like to have faith in Jesus? What does it look like to have the joy of the Lord in the classroom and in all aspects of what you're learning? So definitely working alongside of them, and then looking at the data, because we're in lower school at the beginning stages of everything that they're learning. We're constantly assessing, okay, these foundational skills, are our students mastering those? What can we do differently as far as instruction or the process of learning, so that they develop a love for learning, because they have a lot more school to go from our level. So we want that to be fun. We want that to be something that they feel confident in their abilities that God's blessed them with, so that they can then reach success as they move on and hit some of those harder concepts.
Well, on that note, I do think it's one of the greatest gifts that we can give to our families is if we can instill a joy for learning in all of our students. Well, Trinity, you can see we are incredibly blessed to have these three ladies investing in our faculty and staff here at Trinity. Please stay tuned for what lies ahead. We're going to have more conversations with parents and families and staff here at Trinity. We're so grateful that you've chosen to partner with us, and please know we count it an incredible privilege to invest in this next generation of Christ followers.